on the New Zealand-India FTA. We've just heard from the Labour leader. Let's go to Todd McClay, who's the Minister of Trade. Minister, good morning.
Brian, hey, good morning.
So I want to start with the potential for a future government to put a cap on Indian student numbers. Seems to be quite the point of contention. If we sign up to and ratify this FTA, can a future government put a cap on student numbers coming to New Zealand from India?
Yes, so we already have the ability to have restrictions through immigration policy on who comes, the number of students and so on, and the FTA preserves that. So if you look at a trade agreement, what it often does say or indicate is you can't discriminate against one party versus others around the world. But New Zealand doesn't do that. If we look at all of our policies, including students, wherever a government has wanted to have some sort of control on numbers, they put in place immigration rules, and that in itself has moderated. So current and future governments will have the ability to change the immigration rules that, yes, will have an effect upon the number of students that come to New Zealand, therefore Indian students.
Right. So so long as we're not out of step with other countries, is that basically the caveat?
So we've never had a government that says we only want Australians or we don't like British, as an example. We have an open policy when it comes to students. Anybody that wants to study in New Zealand has to meet the requirements that the New Zealand government sets around being able to support themselves, being able to be genuine students, all these other sorts of things. We've seen the previous government, when Chris Hipkins was there, and ours tighten those so that we made sure that students were coming were, valid students and so on. And then it itself has had effect upon the number of students that comes. But there is nothing in the agreement that says a current or future government can't alter those settings, and therefore it's an open door policy.
Right, but we can't. It would restrict a future government from specifically capping Indian students. Well, that's the difference here, because that would be discrimination. So therefore, it would be against what we would be signing up to. So in a sense, I can see where this argument's coming from. You do have the inability to cap in one sense, while not unilaterally in the other.
Yeah. So if you think about it, there's another part of the agreement that is similar to this. So we've reached agreement on tariff reduction for wine. And then secondly, when it comes to services, New Zealand services providers in the Indian market, there's a clause in the agreement that says we have most favoured nation status. They can't treat somebody else better than us, therefore we can't be treated worse. If they want to give somebody better access, as they have in those two areas, to the EU, they must also extend it to us. So in this case, yes, you're right. We couldn't discriminate against India, but if a current New Zealand government or future government wants to change the immigration settings around how you get a visa to come and study in New Zealand, they're able to do so. That means they could change it to make it easier. So many more students from all around the world they could make it tougher or more challenging, so fewer would come, and that of course would have an effect upon India as it would any other nation that have students want to come here.
But is the issue here not worker exploitation? That particular route for students and for same goes for employment, that there is a particular issue with worker exploitation to do with Indian visa holders?
Well, no, it's not. This is about an agreement of 5 million people in New Zealand and 1.4 billion people in India, and it's a trade agreement. Now, wherever there may be concerns around workers and exploitation, that's a domestic issue for our decision-making, which also therefore can flow through to a visa policy, I suppose. But no, it's not about that. In the agreement, there is recognition that we need to treat workers properly on both sides and so on, as we've had in other agreements that has had very wide-ranging support in the Parliament. But if Mr. Hipkins, I didn't hear the interview, but if he has issues with around exploitation of workers, that is something that's very, very serious. Of course, you saw a week ago National Labour MPs come together jointly to look at policy in this area.
He said look, they're not going to not support this deal, let's be real about it, but they would look for potentially some maybe new legislation or some concessions from National in order to agree to it. Would you be open to some form of agreements on, whether it's worker exploitation or other issues?
So I think around the modern slavery legislation is very much the two major parties working together. As I agree with you, I think it would send a very, very poor signal to the business community, the Indian migrant community, and the world if another large party in New Zealand didn't support a trade deal that's better than almost any other one that India has done. But he said he's going to write to the Prime Minister. We haven't received a letter yet. The indication I'm getting from the Labor side is they do think it's a good deal. It's a step in the right direction. They're going to have to decide quite quickly where their support lies, because I think the business community particularly wants to hear about that. But ultimately, if what they're saying is they're worried about worker exploitation and they want to limit the number of Indians that come here as a result of that, I think they're missing the point of its domestic policy.
I don't think
nothing to do with the trade deal.
Yeah, I don't think that's quite, to be fair, what they're saying. They just have more questions than I think they have answers at this point. So maybe you two just need to get in a room together.
Yeah. So just on that, I mean, the officials have been talking weekly with them. Any questions have been answering. I'll sit down with Damien O'Connor this week, and we've got a good relationship. I mean, ultimately, we've seen super majorities, bipartisanship in trade in almost every trade deal I can think of for a long time. I don't expect this will be different, but it's fair that they want to take a bit of time to understand it. I'll sit down with Damien this week and see whether they have genuine concerns or not, and we'll work through it.
And what about, as for Winston, what is this just politicking, or does he have a point?
Well, I don't think that anybody's overly surprised. New Zealand First has a challenge with a trade agreement. They've taken a position. It's one of the reasons that we agreed very clearly that the agree to disagree principle or clause of the coalition agreement, so that we can have a difference of opinion. It doesn't destabilise the government, and we can get on with the important things of growing the economy, creating jobs, and building roads.
Appreciate your time this morning, Minister. Thank you, Todd McClay, the Trade Minister